If you're thinking about getting a mortgage for real estate in Dubai, whether you're a resident, a business owner, or living overseas, you need to watch this. Today, I'm sitting down with Vinay Bhatia, a mortgage specialist with over 12 years of experience right here in Dubai. And we're breaking down everything you need to know before you get a mortgage. Just before you start watching, I have a huge favor to ask. Please like, subscribe, comment wherever you're watching this video, and share this with anyone you believe it would help. Vinay, welcome to the show, and thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Steven.
No, my pleasure. So, Vinay, we've known each other, about 5 or 6 years?
I believe it's more than 7 years.
Is it really? Good heavens, time flies. So tell me, Vinay, how long have you been here in Dubai?
In Dubai, almost 12 years now.
Right.
Initially, I worked for a few banks in mortgages, and then I joined this company where I'm working now.
So you came from India?
Yes.
And you came to Dubai 12 years ago and immediately worked in banks?
Yeah. So overall experience, if I'll talk about, I have almost 22 years of experience in mortgages only. Initially, I worked in India, and then I came to UAE, started working with few banks, few local banks, Mashreq, Dubai Islamic, which was earlier Noor Bank. And also I worked with Standard Chartered, Barclays, some multinational bank. So I have quite experience with mortgages.
Very good. And do you have any specific sector of the market that you specialize in? I know that anybody who asks me about, or who's inquired from overseas about a mortgage, etc., I always introduce you as being my go-to person. I know you do lots of other things. Tell me what else you do. What is
so mortgage is the first criteria. I do all mortgages, mostly into residential mortgages. But yes, when it comes to salaried, self-employed, non-residents, expats, local, everything.
Okay. So a lot of people watching this will not be living in Dubai or the UAE.
I understand.
And so they're overseas. And I know from the conversations I've had in the past and even now is that people don't know that they can actually have a mortgage on a property here in Dubai. Can you tell me what are the main differences between being a resident here and being coming from overseas, a non-resident? We call them non-res, yeah, for short. But a resident or a non-res, what's the main difference with regards to getting a mortgage here in Dubai?
Yeah, a lot of people think that being a non-resident, if they are not living in UAE, they can't get a mortgage. But that's not the criteria. From a very long time, banks are actually giving funding to a lot of non-resident. And initially, very few banks were there, but now a lot of banks have started non-resident financing. And the main criteria is whenever someone who is a non-resident not living in Dubai and living in his own country, for them, we need to check some part of the income that he's eligible, that he's working there, or either they are getting a salary or they have their own business. So this is the main criteria, and the other criteria is that how much amount they maintain in their bank accounts in their own country. So this is the criteria only for non-residents. And when it comes to resident, so we don't check that. We only check how much you are earning in UAE. How much is your income? Either its income is coming from your salary or from your business, rentals, any other thing.
So if I'm an overseas resident, and again, one of the things, certainly in the UK where I'm from, is that when you are building a property portfolio, you use leveraging, you use mortgages to increase that portfolio to help you buy them. So the rental income and any debt that they might have in the UK, how is that perceived by the banks here in Dubai?
So if you have a rental income from a property within UAE, that can be counted as an income for you. So what the banks are doing, whatever income you have, they have a criteria of taking 80% because they assume that 20% you have to pay for the service charges, maintenance, for all those things. So 80% is the normal amount which you are taking as an eligibility for you. So they add that rental income into your existing income of a salary or from a business income, whatever you have.
On that point, my understanding is that if you're doing short-term rentals, the bank don't like that. They only like a long-term rental.
So bank needs an ijari. It should be confirmed with a registered ijari. If you
Okay.
don't have an ijari, then we cannot count your rental income.
Okay. And overseas non-residents getting rental income, is that considered a source of income for them?
So if you are overseas and you have rental income in your home country, that is a separate thing. We can't add that income as a rental. But if you have a rental income within UAE, so
No, but if I'm a non-resident, I live in the UK, for instance, I want to buy property in Dubai, but I want a mortgage. Does my income from, say, trust fund, from, you mentioned income, from a job or from a business, but there are other ways of getting income
Right.
when you're overseas, such as income from your family trust, from rental income, etc. Is that counted?
okay, so there is very specific criteria for non-residents. For non-residents, either we need to show income from a salary, which is a most important thing, or otherwise you should own a company. If you show us the ownership of your company, that you have ownership in this company, or if you have a partnership in any of the company along with any other person, then we will not ask for any other income. Then we will only check what balance you maintain in your personal bank account. So if you can show that you are the owner of so and so company and you maintain a very good balance in your personal bank account. When I say very good balance, it's not about very high balance. It could be $10,000 also. Right. If you have this kind of a balance, I'm talking about the minimum one for a minimum securing mortgage for a smaller property, then you will be able to get a mortgage in UAE. The criteria is very simple.
Another thing that's happening a lot at the moment is the new golden visas.
Yeah.
So I'm having people from overseas who want to buy property here in Dubai, and whether it's off-plan or completed property, and at some point, obviously off-plan, they have to wait until it's finished to get the mortgage, but if it's a completed property, they want to buy a property with a mortgage, but they have a golden visa here, but no job. They're still living in the UK, or they're still living in
Right,
Canada,
I
or whatever.
understand where you're coming
And now
from.
they want a mortgage here in the UAE on a property. How does that work?
So there's a lot of questions like this are coming to me from a lot of different people. So for this, I just want to clarify that even if you have a golden visa, you will not be considered as a resident when it comes to mortgage, particularly, right? With a golden visa, you are a resident, you get a kind of facilities for the resident, but when it comes to mortgages, particularly, you need to have an income within UAE. If you don't have that, if you are getting a golden visa based on your property in UAE, then also you can secure a mortgage as a non-resident. When I say as a non-resident, that means we will consider your income from your home country.
Even though you have a golden visa here?
Yes, even if you have a golden visa based on any property in UAE.
So I can buy a property in the UAE as a non-resident with a golden visa, and I can get a mortgage on it based on my income from overseas.
That's right.
Amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, these things are very recently started,
Right.
and a lot of people don't know about this.
Okay. That's really interesting. And one of the other things that people are asking me as well is because, again, I go back to the UK because I'm from the UK, and this is common to me, is that when people are building a property portfolio in the UK, they more often than not put the property into a company name. And now they're doing so that sort of ring fences it and protects it against tax liabilities or larger tax liabilities. They're now looking at Dubai and they're saying, right, I want to buy a property in a company name. What's in a UAE company name? They'll set up a UAE vehicle to buy property, whether that be a foundation or a company. What's the stipulation there? What are the criteria required to get a mortgage on a property in Dubai if they have a UAE company, but they're non-resident?
Okay, so when you have a UAE company, then you will not be non-resident, because when you
Okay.
have a company, you will get a visa. Maybe you are not living here, but when you have a company, that means from the bank perspective, they will think that now you have a company, so you must be having an income within UAE. So in this thing, we cannot consider your income from home country. because you have a company. You get the visa on the basis of the company. So you are a resident based on a company here. We can't consider your income from home country.
If I set up a company in the UAE,
Yeah.
I then send money from my UK account or my UK company and I send it to this company, put the money into the company bank account, and then start paying me a salary. What happens then in terms of mortgages?
Yeah, so this is also one of the criteria where you can get a mortgage. So if you open a company, the company is established in UAE, and from that company you are paying yourself some kind of a salary or income or withdrawal or director's remuneration, anything. If it is coming to your personal bank account, then in this criteria you can also get a mortgage up to 60% of the property value after 6 months.
After 6 months, that's
After
all you
six
have to wait.
months, yes.
So you only have to show 6 months bank statements.
Yes, only 6 months
Ev-
personal bank statement. Even in this case, you don't
Right.
need to show your company bank statement. That is also not required. Even if your company is, we are not asking about what business company is doing, how
Right.
much they have done, the turnover, profit. For this company, we will not be asking. But yes, if you have income coming in your personal account from your company account, you can still get a mortgage up to 60% of the property value.
And does the bank care that the property is in the company name rather than your personal name?
No, it should be in the personal name. Here we are giving you a mortgage, not the company.
So you can't put a property in your company name and then expect to get a mortgage.
In this case, no.
What about if I'm a resident, I have a business here in Dubai, I'm making money out of my company, can I buy property in a UAE company name and then expect to get a mortgage on that company-owned property?
Yes. If you have a company more than 3 years in UAE generating a good profit, having a decent turnover, proper office, then you can secure a mortgage in the company name as well.
Let's talk about loan to values. So you mentioned this. You mentioned earlier about 60% would be possible for a company owner to get a mortgage on a property up to 60%
That's
loan
right.
to value.
On a 60%, yes.
So what are the different bands or the different requirements to get a higher LTV? Or I know that non-residents can get up to 60% now as if you don't live here. Is that right?
For non-residents, now a lot of banks are starting a new, I would say, new LTVs. But currently, we have 65% for the first property for any non-resident, and for the any subsequent property, 60%.
So 65,
65.
and then 60% for subsequent properties. How many other properties can I have a mortgage on?
There is no limit as such. If you have an eligibility, you can get as many as you can. Not all banks are doing non-resident financing, so very few banks are doing. So some of the criteria come for those banks, maybe 3 properties for a single individual or 5 properties for a single individual. But you have multiple banks, so you can get 5, 6, 7, 8.
So each bank will do up to maybe 5 or 6 properties. So essentially, you get 6 banks, you can have 30 properties.
Few banks are doing only 2. Some
Right.
are doing more than 5 also. Based on the different profile and criteria, you can get as many as you can.
Is there any limits on the amount that the banks will lend to a non-resident?
Yeah, for a resident, there is no limit. For non-resident financing, yes, there is limit. So most of the banks, they do under 10 million of a mortgage, but as an exceptional, they can do up to 20 million also.
So a normal mortgage for a non-resident investor who remains a non-resident, they can borrow up to 10 million on a property, on one property or multiple properties.
10 million is the criteria for one property. And
Right.
it can go up to 20 million also. As an exception, I have done 20 million mortgage also for a non-resident.
So this begs the question, why does an overseas buyer or even someone here, living here, need a mortgage broker?
So yes, you need a mortgage broker because mortgage broker can give you best terms and conditions with the bank, because we know which bank is offering what could be in your best interest. So every individual is different. Everyone has a different requirement. Maybe you are taking this mortgage for 20 years, but you have in your mind that I want to close this mortgage in another 5 to 6 years. So you may be looking for criteria where you can overpay. You can make partial payments in your home finance without any extra charges. Not all banks are giving that, but some of the banks are giving. And when it comes to if you want to transfer your salary, you may get a lower rate. So there are so many criterias which you directly cannot get. You can't go to all the banks to get those rates and everything. What you can do, the best thing, if you have a salary with one bank, you will go to that bank. You say, okay, I need a mortgage. They will say, okay, we'll do it. You don't know what other banks are offering. Maybe they're offering less rate of interest. Maybe they're offering less fees, any other offers, which you are not aware of. So here the mortgage broker can give you the best deal. That is one. Secondly, mortgage broker can give you more terms and conditions as per your requirement. Maybe you are not aware of certain things. Like I met one of the client and he said, see, I am taking this property, but my whole idea is that within a year I want to close this loan. And if I close this loan, I have to pay that prepayment penalty. So I said, okay, no problem. I will give you that kind of a loan where you will not be paying any prepayment penalty. And I gave him a kind of loan where he has paid 90%, up to 90% he has paid without any extra charges.
So I'm presuming that if he'd gone directly to the bank would probably say, I don't want your business. No? He needs to travel around all the banks to get that answer. If I walked into a Main Street bank, maybe my own bank, and said, I want a mortgage, but I'm going to settle it in a year, would they like that? I'm pretty sure they wouldn't like that kind of business.
No, bank doesn't say no to anyone because bank will take more interest in the initial years. So
right.
Anyway, if we want to close the mortgage after 6 months or 1 year, doesn't matter with the bank because they have secured a lot of interest and fees from that client.
So what would you say to someone that doesn't want to deal with you, doesn't want to pay any fees, etc.? They just want to go. What do you say to people who go directly to a bank today?
So when it comes to fees, if you have a profiled client, we don't charge any fees to a lot of customers. If they are resident customers, they have an option of getting a salary. The case is clear. We don't charge any fees to a lot of clients. We only charge a fees to the client when the case is little typical, to get things around, to get approval. So in those cases, we charge a fees. Otherwise, we can get this done without any fees also. We get paid from the bank.
In the UK, again, if I apply for a mortgage and I get refused, then I have a black mark in the credit agency. Is that the same here?
So nothing like that as of now. The Al Ittihad Credit Bureau is maintaining their own records. It will definitely reflect in AECB that you have been rejected, but due to what reason, it will not be showing anything there. But yes, if you not maintain your credit history properly, then there could be a more possibility that you will get rejected for any kind of a loans from the bank.
No, I mean, if I go into a bank today, and I know that if I went to talk to the person on the front desk in the bank and said, I want a mortgage, they would tell me, yeah, no problem, you can have a mortgage. They don't ask me anything about who I am, what I do for a living, what my salary is. They'll tell me I get a mortgage. And then they will say, give me 3,000 dirhams and you can make an application for a mortgage. And then I get refused because obviously I don't meet the criteria of the bank.
Why you pay 3,000 dirhams?
Don't they ask for money for application?
No, now application is totally free.
Oh, is it?
The pre-approval for residents are totally free. You will not need to pay anything for the pre-approval.
Right.
For non-residents, yes, few banks are charging that fees to get the pre-approval.
What sort of charges do they make for?
It's 1,000 dirhams plus tax.
So about $250, $300.
1,050 is the dirhams in dirhams. Yeah.
Okay.
And even if you get rejected, it will not spoil your history. Maybe there could be a mark. There could be a lower mark in your credit bureau score.
Right.
It will go a little down, but doesn't matter much.
I go to one bank, I get turned down. I can go to another, and there's no penalty.
There's no penalty, but your score will go down when you apply with so many banks.
Right. That's why you need a broker. Yes. Because the broker will take your information, and then they will understand your criteria, and then you will then go to the correct bank.
So with the broker, one more important thing is we understand which bank will give you approval easily. As per your documents, as per the provided documents, we can check. And I know that this bank will approve and this bank will not approve. So I will choose a right bank for you in that criteria, that you will be going with the right choice and you will not get rejected. We will make sure for that also.
I have clients asking me, I would like to buy a property, but I need a mortgage. Can I go and look at some properties today? I haven't started the mortgage process. And I normally tell them, look, really the best thing to do is to go and get your mortgage, at least a mortgage offer, or start the mortgage approval process, pre-approval, and then you will be able to make an offer. What sort of timelines for a resident and for a non-resident would you expect? What can you tell people about how long the whole process takes?
So for a resident, the whole process can be executed within 4 weeks. It is possible, but nowadays, because of lot of business with the banks are burdened up with the files. So probably I would say 4 to 6 weeks maximum.
So you speak to an overseas buyer. He says, "I want a mortgage." What sort of timing? How long would you manage him and say, "Look, it's going to take X amount of time"? How long is that process going to take?
Approximately 6 weeks.
The same as here. Then.
Yeah, for a resident, non-resident, I would say for non-resident, extra 2 weeks we can take.
So about 8 weeks. 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8, you can take 6 to 8. But we can finish off a lot of cases within 5 to 6 weeks.
Do you need translated documents at all from overseas?
So if the documents are not in English, then we need to get the translation done. We can get the translation done within UAE as well. Most of the clients, they do that.
So can you talk about the sort of step-by-step process for applying for a mortgage here in the UAE?
Yeah, so it starts with the documents. Once the documents has been shared by the customer, he shared all the required documents. I'm talking about resident or non-resident in either cases.
What would those documents be?
So in resident cases, the documents relates to the income and ID documents. ID is passport, visa, Emirates ID, and income is his bank statement and company salary certificate from the company HR to confirm that he's working with this company and this is the salary what he's getting. So these are the very nominal documents requirement. So with these documents, we apply for the pre-approval. We decide a bank for the client and accordingly we apply for the pre-approval. And pre-approval usually takes 4 to 6 days, sometimes 3 days also, based on depends upon the profile and banks. And once you get the pre-approval, then client is open to find any property as per his requirement. As soon as he finds the property, we do the valuation of the property.
Very good. So as you know, I'm a specialist in off-plan.
Yeah.
So I'm probably not your best friend for mortgages because people can't get mortgages on off-plan properties. But I understand that's now changing as well. Talk to us about how off-plan mortgages and why people can't get mortgages on off-plan, basically. Just tell us about that.
So nowadays, yes, off-plan mortgages are also possible. Earlier it was very less, but nowadays a lot of banks are starting because they see the potential in this industry. As now we see the payment plans are changing to 70-30, 70 during the construction, or 80-20, or 90-10. So they have more potential in this segment because usually all off-plans mortgages are only 50%. So in this way, the first 50% will be paid by the client and rest 50% will become to the bank. So there are two different criteria. The very first criteria is that bank should check if the payment of your first 50% is already done by the client and the property is also more than 50% completed. So this should be updated in the DLD website that the property is already more than 50% completed. So after these two criteria are completed, the bank is open for a mortgage for very certain developers. Not all developers are listed, but big developers like MR, Dubai Properties, Rakil, even Damac also, they are doing this. And this is only for Dubai properties, not outside Dubai.
And I'm presuming this is not for non-residents, it's only for residents.
This is only for residents.
Okay. So I'm a non-resident. I'm buying a property from EMAR. It's on an 80-20 payment plan.
Right.
I want a mortgage at the end once the property has got the building completion certificate. How much money can I borrow on that property?
Okay, so if you are taking a normal mortgage, I'm not talking about off-plan mortgage now, as you have taken a plan of 80-20, you are paying 80% during the construction and now handover came. At the time of handover, so your developer needs only 20%. In this case, bank can approve you 60% as a mortgage, or in resident, if this is a very first property for you, you can get 80% if the property value is less than 5 million. 80% approval will be done. Out of this 80%, first bank will pay 20% to the developer. The developer will issue the title deed in your name, in the name of the client, with the mortgage of the bank name. At that point, after that, after the title deed is received by the bank can release the extra 60% as an equity, but this fund will be controlled by the bank. So you cannot get cash for this 60%, but this fund you can use for buying any real estate in UAE.
How long do you have to spend that 60%?
Okay, so you have to provide that where you want to spend this money. You have to provide that before the final offer letter issued in the bank. You need to provide where you want to use this fund.
So before they will pay the developer the 20%, they need to tell the bank where they're going to put the other 60%.
Yeah, they need a document for that. If you are buying another property, you need to provide an MOU, which is Form F. If you already have any off plan where you want to pay to the developer, then you need to provide the ACUD and SOA, Statement of Account from the developer. So these documents
Can
you will
you
provide.
buy another off-plan property?
You can.
So you would have to. So 60% is probably more than you would need to pay to the developer, but that's fine. The bank doesn't care. They just give the 60% immediately to the.
Yes, immediately. They will prepare a one single check. Let's say you want to buy from X developer.
Yeah.
They will prepare a check in the name of X developer for this 60% payment. They will give it to you. Now you can pay to developer whenever you want. Now or after 10 days or after 1 month, doesn't matter. For bank, it's done.
So that means that you could probably walk into a developer or speak to your agent, and they can find a developer that maybe discounts that property because you're giving them 60% up front.
Yeah, but this has to be done before the final approval because
Gotcha.
we need documents.
Yeah.
Now, some of the banks here are asking ACUD, a registered property, and some of the banks, they only ask for the reservation form is fine. If you
Right.
reserve the property, giving 5% check is also fine.
Okay. So I've got 60% equity in this property because they've lent me all the money, or 80% on the loan to value on this completed property. What options do I have with that 60%?
So the very first option is to buy any real estate in UAE. This is the first option. If you don't want to do that, the other option is you want to do some renovation in your property, in your existing property. That fund can also be used for that. So that could be the controlled payment. Most of the banks do this payment as a controlled payment where they will not pay to you, rather they will say, okay, you want to do a construction, renovation, give us the contract agreement, and as per the contract invoice, they will prepare a check in the name of contractor. That is also possible.
Those are my only two options.
No,
Buy
you-
another property or renovate my current property.
So in some of the cases, you have one more option to get cash, but this is done by very few banks. And the criteria is little different, where you have maximum 20% of your property value, which you can get as a equity, as in cash.
So if a client thinks that that's the sort of thing he wants to do, he's going to have to explain that all to you at the beginning, so you go to the right bank.
Yeah, so we got the right bank. Even I have done, very recently, I have done a case where I got the client approximately 60% of his property value as in cash also.
Right.
So again, depends on certain circumstances. Cash is also possible. But cash means it will be going to your account directly.
So that's, again, another reason to use a mortgage broker.
Yes, because a lot of things which you don't know about the market is happening.
Exactly. So loan to values, or LTVs as we know, as they're called, and also maximum amount of loans. Can you just address that? How much are the banks lending? What
Okay.
sort of
For a
values?
resident, you can get up to 80% of the property value as a mortgage. For any property less than 5 million value, 80%. And if the property value goes beyond 5 million or 5 million, so 5 million and above, you can only get 70% if it is the first property. So for any subsequent, second and subsequent property, 60% is the criteria for any property, either less than 5 million or more than 5 million.
Is there any limit on the cost of the property?
There is no limit as such. If your property is 40 million, 50 million also, you can get 70% if it is the first property for you. You should be eligible as per your income for this.
Of course.
And one more thing I just want to tell you about the criteria of age. Now, earlier we have, for a salaried client, it was that your loan should finish up to the age of 65, which is some of the banks have started to go up to 70 years as well for salaried.
And if you're a company owner?
Then 70 is always there.
And if you're a non-resident?
In non-resident, you can get 65 years, and some of the banks are considered is only 60, but 65 and 70 for self-employed are also possible.
Let's talk about the types of mortgages and any special considerations. So obviously we're here in an Islamic country. Can you tell me something about Shariah compliant mortgages and how they differ from normal mortgages?
Yeah, in this country, in this part of the world, a lot of people are actually looking for Islamic mortgage, and I would say more than 80% banks do Islamic mortgages. Even if they are not Islamic banks, they have their own department for the Islamic mortgages. In the Islamic mortgage, the concept is very different. There is not any kind of a loan or interest. We only talk about the financing. So it is a home financing where the bank is actually paying funds to your seller and buying a property for you. So here the bank and the client, they both will become lessor and lessee. They will sign a lease agreement. So you will be paying rentals to the bank as bank has given you this premises to live. So there's a lease agreement which signed between the buyer and the bank for a certain period, let's say 20 years. So for 20 years you will be paying the rentals and bank has given you the premises to live. So after that period is over, the property will be transferred to your name. So because you will sign all the agreements, promise to sell everything at the start of the mortgage only.
What type of mortgages is similar to overseas do we have here in Dubai for non-residents buying a mortgage, having a mortgage here in Dubai?
For non-resident, we don't have interest only or buy-to-let mortgages as we do have in UK and Europe. But here we have a normal mortgages where they can get this much of LTV, which I told you, 65% for the first property. The property value is less than 5 million. And after that, 60% for any property.
So they're paying down the capital sum. It's not an interest-free mortgage for an overseas buyer.
You need to pay the complete installment, which includes your principal as well as interest.
Okay. And as a resident on a salary, what are the different types of mortgages I can get here?
If you're taking an off-plan
So that
mortgage,
50% loan, you
yes,
can get on an off-plan mortgage.
yeah. So
That's interest only.
That interest only till the time your property is not completed. So how it works is, as soon as your developer is asking payment, let's say they ask 10%, you already paid 50%. So when it comes to another 10%, then bank will release that 10%. They will charge interest only for that particular one. Then again they will ask after 6 months another 10%. So they will release another 10%. So till the time of property is completed, they will only charge interest. And the whole payment of interest plus principal will be charged once the property is completed and the title deed will come.
Can all nationalities get a mortgage in Dubai, whether they're a non-res or a resident? Is there any rules and regulations around nationalities?
There are certain restricted nationalities as well, and there are certain war zones where bank don't do mortgages. So the reason is actually the insurance is not possible for that particular zone. So any person who is living in a war zone, the insurance company will decline. And for the mortgages, we have to do the insurance. The life insurance is a mandatory thing. One more thing I just want to tell you, there are few banks in UAE which can do your mortgage without insurance, without life insurance. So usually all banks, they charge insurance fees. So you have to pay that insurance fees. But if you don't want to pay insurance fees, the option is available for residents only.
Can that insurance be something that's nothing to do with the bank? I just go out and I have a life insurance from another source, or do I have to use the bank's life insurance?
Yeah, so in this criteria, you can have your own insurance. Bank has nothing to do with that. Bank will do the mortgage without insurance.
You mentioned that there was some new types of lending in the property world at the moment. One is you mentioned land financing. What can you tell me about land financing?
Yeah, so now land financing is also started by the bank. If you own a land or if you want to buy a land, want to do a construction, so that is also possible.
Are you talking about constructing a villa or a single family property or a tower?
No, constructing a villa for an individual.
Okay. So a single family home.
Yes, that is also possible. And you can get up to 50% of the cost as a mortgage.
Of the land or the construction
The
costs?
complete cost, the land plus construction cost, 50% you can get.
So, yeah, let's talk about rates. And my understanding is that our interest rates for both non-residents and for residents are slightly different, but also they are kind of follow the USA. Is that correct?
That's right, because when the rates change in USA, it affects directly. As you know, dirham is directly connected with the US dollar. So whatever changes has been done in US, it will get the effect here as
So
well.
as they go up and down in the US, ours goes up and down.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. So this is the scenario. I have set up a company here in Dubai, and I have been trading for 6, 9 months, etc. And now I want a mortgage. However, I don't have an office, I don't have a shop. I'm basically working from a sort of virtual world, as many people are here in Dubai. They are working maybe as a freelancer, or they're working for their company in the UK, but they're setting up something here as a separate entity where they are basically a resident or a golden visa owner. How difficult is it then to get a mortgage if you are not, you don't actually have a physical company?
Yeah, so a lot of clients are like that, who are working here but doesn't have a proper office setup. But yes, they can also get a mortgage. If the property is under 5 million bracket, then it's quite easy, not a problem. But if you are looking for a property for a higher amount, like 7, 8 million, 10 million, then getting the mortgage is, you need a little difficulty. But yes, it's possible. We have done certain cases like that as well. If your company is having a good turnover, still you don't have an office, but yes, your company is doing good, you have a turnover in the bank account, you can still get a mortgage without even having an office set up for a higher amount as well.
So, as a
Because-
real estate agent, I use a mortgage broker to help me sell property, or at least put the investor's mind at rest about the possibility that he can get a mortgage in 2 or 3 years' time. And quite often, I start conversations with investors, and they say that they will probably want a mortgage at the end to make the final payments, etc. And at that point, I introduce you to them, because I'm no expert on mortgages, but you then will have, what kind of conversation will you have with them, bearing in mind that they won't need the mortgage for 2 or 3 years? What is that conversation you have with them?
So usually I checked with the client about their income, about their profile, and accordingly I will guide them. There could be a possibility after talking to them, I understand that they are not eligible at this point of time. But in that case, I will guide them. I will guide them to do certain things to become eligible in future. And also I told them that please contact me before 6 months of the handover of the property, so that I will re-verify your documents, and in case if your eligibility criteria is not meeting, so I will guide you again to do certain things, and you will be eligible after 3 to 6 months.
So am I right in saying that what you're saying is if the investor gives you 6 months prior to needing that mortgage, you can pretty much get them into the right criteria and the right shape to get that mortgage, and pretty much guarantee that they're going to get a mortgage if they follow what you're telling them to do?
100%.
Why should a real estate agent need a mortgage broker like you?
Yeah, so the thing is, actually we know the market, we understand our product. Maybe like you understand your market and product. You know which side, which locality, which developer is. So accordingly we know our banks, we know our products. So according to the requirement of the customer, we can guide the customer. So that is where we step in. So by talking to the client, I can add a value. I can tell your client, maybe the client is confused, they don't know they will get a mortgage or no. So when I'm talking to the client, I tell them that now this is the criteria and you are meeting the criteria. So you can very well go for buying this property and you will get the mortgage easily. And I will tell them that you need to do these things in case if you are not eligible now, and you will be eligible after some time at the time of handover. So this is helping your client to get more confidence in buying a property.
Why should an overseas buyer use a mortgage broker such as Vinay Bhatia?
See, overseas buyer, they need a coordination with the bank. So we do all of them. From the start of collecting the documents up to the transfer of the property, we coordinate with each and everything. So we will find the best bank for them. We will see what requirements they have, and accordingly, what are they eligible, or if they are not. See, we will not put a file in the bank if my client is not eligible. We don't want to do that rejection of his mortgage. So if he is not eligible, I will tell him to do this certain things, wait for 1 month or 2 months or 3 months as per the requirement, and accordingly I will guide them to get things done. So I will be the one, when I take the responsibility of my client, so I will make sure that 100% the mortgage will be done for him.
You do everything to enable the client, the lender, the mortgagee, to literally just travel here for a couple of days, sign the paperwork, and then leave. Is that
Yes.
correct?
It is also possible for a client if he's coming for a very short span of time. Although some of the banks and brokers, they ask for the client to come 2 times, 3 times. I only check with the client. If you're comfortable coming for a longer period, it's fine. Otherwise, if you want to get the things done as early as possible, so I will make sure that once you arrive in UAE, you have everything done before you arrive in UAE, so that you will come and within 4 to 5 days we will finish it off everything and you can go back.
And one of the reasons I like working with you, Vinay, is that many other mortgage brokers, they look at it as a very short-term relationship, in that they're not really interested in talking to people who want an off-plan mortgage in 2 or 3 years' time. They're only interested in business that they can have now. In other words, a completed property, an easy sale, etc. You're different. Why are you different?
Because I don't work with the current approach, I work for the future. I'm in this market for a long time. I can see the potential in the market. I have so many repeated customers who are coming to me, who referred their own friends, relatives, colleagues. So this is the reason. See, I don't want to take the interest which I need now. I just want to maintain a long-term relationship with anyone, with you, with the client, and so that he will also feel comfortable working with me. So that's the whole criteria, making a relationship, working like that.
Vinay, thank you very much for sharing your insights today. It's been really good to see you, and really good to listen to your very valuable insights on mortgages here in Dubai. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Steven. Thank you for this invite. And I'm really very grateful to meet you at this podcast. And maybe this will help you and your client as well.
And where can we reach you? What's your email or website, etc.?
So the best thing is that they can contact you and you can refer to me. It's not a problem anytime. And if they want to contact me, I have my email ID. It's vinay@benchmarkbrokers.ae.
Thanks again, Vinay. And thank you to our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more insights into the Dubai property market.